that you again, Justin?
Guilty as charged. Just got back from my barbershop quartet. So
You didn't shave the facial stubble since the last time I saw you, so
it's spring. It's spring. So
let's see. I give everyone give everyone a minute or two here. I think we got a full house. I think George is the only one we're still waiting for.
George is at the academy meeting. I just left there.
Got it. Okay. Ugly Mob. I told him to go easy on you, but he can't stop himself. Got it. I guess it's 5. In that case, in 5:31, I'll call the meeting to order. Public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Moving item to number 3, approval of prior minutes of March 17th, 2024. 25, rather. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sharon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Old business, hearing none. Moving on to item number 4, architect's report.
thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the building committee. So in your packet, you should have our most recent construction administration biweekly report. I'll just go over the broad stroke summary of it. In the past 14 days, we've received 26 new RFIs for a total of 375, 30 new submittals for a total of 856. We do have a number of PCOs that we will be reviewing tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions as those come up. Payment application number 13 is under review by the design team. We continue to attend weekly OAC meetings as well as site visits, and we've included those field reports as part of the packet. So we have a couple of pending forthcoming reports, one from Kohler Ronan, but we should have the prior Kohler Ronan as well as the Tecton ones in your court. We also have issued 4 bulletins, mostly resulting in clarifications regarding field conditions as well as submittal reviews. On the FF&E front, we have continued to coordinate now that the majority of the procurement, save for some of the direct purchase items, have already had their purchase orders issued. We have started to attend the coordination meetings that Adam has set up related to FF&E delivery installation as well as playscape coordination. We held a meeting last week with Gilbane just to start to coordinate that turnover of, making sure that we're completing the project, the building first, as well as enabling these other vendors to come in and utilize the site in an effective way without getting in the way of Gilbane. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have related to either the report, what's going on in the site, or anything really.
Any questions for Justin?
I have a question about, and we'll probably get to it when we go through all the different change order things, but it was something about the drain on one of the chain gutters that had to be changed out. I was curious as to why that one wasn't done like the others.
So this was mostly a result of making sure that we were coordinating the stormwater away from the building. So it was mostly to do with the underground system that aligned with the location of the rain chains. And frankly, if you recall, some of the I don't want to call them late changes because we pride ourselves in coordination with our disciplines, but there were a couple of items when we switched the pitch from facing Mungertown Road, the open end, to kind of the east end of the site. We frankly had some further coordination with the underground. So,
thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions before we turn it over to Robert? Robert, you're up.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, just to start off, just want to let everyone know that we're proceeding where we want to be currently. So schedule-wise, we feel like we're in good shape where we are. We're kind of progressing right where we expect to be. So sometimes it gets lost and we don't actually do a general update like that when we get into the pictures. But just a heads up, so I know we're getting close to where we're getting the turnover. So just kind of want to reinforce that with everyone. A lot of that is due to the building committee, Tecton, and Colliers. Some of these items you'll see come up in the next section of the meeting, some of these decisions and some of these change reviews. The timely action on these have really helped us to kind of maintain and keep on schedule. If we get bogged down with decisions on those and stuff kind of drags out, that throws off sequencing. So just wanted to kind of start off by thanking the team here for making those decisions and kind of keeping us moving and getting the information we need to keep building what we need to build. With that little segue out of the way, let me go ahead and share my screen. So I switched it up a little this meeting. Took some photos today. Now it was kind of a rainy and not a beautiful day out there, but I figured we're moving along so quickly right now that if I try to share images from a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they are outdated and really don't do it justice where we are. So just starting outside, this is looking at the main entrance. So what you'll see is we'll do a little bit of a tour on the outside and you'll kind of see the progress we've made with the site work and the site finishes over the last couple of weeks. We have this sidewalk formed now and ready to place. This is going up to the main entrance. Behind me, we actually did the little ornamental stair. There is a stair down from this upper level to lower level. That's all done and ready for railings at this point. So we're making good progress here. We are working on these canopies. It's a little hard to tell, but this canopy, the upper canopy, is basically done with the metal roofing. And we're going to continue on. The roofers weren't on site today, but we're expecting by next week, but in the next week, though, we'll have the metal roofing done on the canopies surrounding the building. Moving on. So now this is taking a look up at that main entrance. It's a little hard to tell, but we are so these items under the tarps right here and under this plastic are the ornamental bench seats, the seat walls that are down at the lower area. So this is the cafeteria. So these are actually installed. They're protected right now because of where we are construction wise. But we've worked on the foundations for these and these are basically set in place. So we're making progress down there, getting these out of the way, and then we'll continue with this entrance area here and the flat work and sidewalks required. So now I jumped over and Mungertown Road is to my left right here. We're looking at the north entrance to the site. And what you can see here is more sidewalks placed. So these sidewalks out to the main entrance will be done this week. So by the end of this week, weather cooperating, we'll have the concrete in place. And then what you can see through the parking lot is that it's based out and basically getting ready to where it's almost ready for pavement. So we went through and kind of been working on putting the material in place and grading this and getting it ready for fine grading and that prep for pavement. So now this is just looking a little to the right towards kind of down here would be the well fields in that lower area, shipping and receiving. And this gives you a little better example, a little idea of how we are with the flat work. All these sidewalks are installed. And again, the parking lot's prepped. And then you'll see in a future photo, but like the curbing down around this radius area is done as well. It's a little hard to see in the photo, but the flat work and concrete is done. So now I just spun 180 and I'm looking down. This would be where the pre-K and kindergarten playground is. And the same thing, prepped for sidewalks. We'll be working on the last element here, these fiber cement surrounds on these windows, probably in about 2 weeks, but these should be done right around the 1st of May, and we'll be finished with these sidewalks as well. It's a little unique, little interesting the way the sidewalks are done. They actually leave out sections, so they'll place almost hopscotch. So they'll do a couple panels and then they'll come in and fill in between those panels. So that's why there you'll see a break here, but there's a panel here and a panel here. Going down. All right. There is your emergency generator. So this was set right around the 1st of April, last week of March. And then this was actually set this morning. So we have the shed on site. So this is looking down at that shipping and receiving area. And if you look up, you can again see the curbing in place, and we're getting prepped for the binder course of pavement. So now I jump to the east side of the site. Daniel Hand is sort of basically at my back, and you can see that we're finishing up the exterior here. So these are the fiber cement surrounds on the borders. Metal panels are installed and we're just wrapping up. So basically what we have left is to finish these sections of metal panels, which should be complete by the end of the week if weather holds and we don't have any impact with really heavy rain. And then this is just another example, gives you a little better shot at the entrances to that lower level and the metal panels and glass and glazing at the 2 entrances. Behind me, we're actually working on concrete down at the bottom as well. So they're starting to form the concrete curbs that are required at the perimeter of the upper grade playground. So, all right. And then this quick shot of the courtyards. And you can see so again, you can see how he sort of does sections of the concrete. And we basically have our last 2 sections left to place of the courtyard with the flat work. So now I jumped inside. So we're looking at the gym, and what these gentlemen are doing here are prepping for the fluid applied gym floor. You can see we installed the wall panels, the majority of the wall panels. We've put those in before so we didn't have to work on the fluid applied floor. In about the next 3 weeks, these gentlemen, the flooring crew, will be in here putting down this gym floor. So that'll be a big item to have completed. And then we have the bleachers lined up to come in a couple of days to a week, basically a week after that floor is done. So that's already been coordinated, and we have the date when the bleachers will come in and be installed along this wall. So now I'm standing in the main corridor up on basically area A, looking down. This is the cafeteria. So just to give you a feel, permanent lighting is on. So these are the actual lights energized. And you can see we're starting to do the finishes around the platform. So when you're down in the cafeteria, you do look up at these acoustical wall panels and this acoustical detail that's on the wall by the platform. And you can see the glass windows are in. I believe this is the art room here. So we're and you'll see better, but the floor is in as well. Let's see. So now I was standing basically right by this trash can in the last photo, but this gives you a good shot at that main corridor. Painting isn't going on and in good shape. We have the architectural ceiling tile and ceiling grid installed at both ends. So this is a yellow, and then it's the main entrance by the main office. You'll see there's a blue architectural element, blue ceiling tile and grid at that location. And then you can see the floor. So we're pushing right through the main level and basically getting down to the lower level with our finishes. So it gives. Okay. And then this is a nice shot inside the media center. So you can see we have a couple ceiling tiles out that we would just need to pad out as we finish, but you can see the glass storefront current wall in place. And again, these are the permanent lights. So we're actually energized running off the permanent lights, which is important and a nice transition. Lets us get our temps out and gets us transitioned over to the permanent power. We're working in the corners on the tile wainscot, so they gave you a little sample of what that'll look like. Now there's other architectural details, wall protection that'll wrap this opening here, so that's why you see the gap. And as we get through, you'll see gaps where there's either the wall graphics with the local images, or if there's a marker tack board, there's different surfaces that break this up. So that's why you see the kind of gaps. We've held off on this wall protection in some of the final wall images and wall graphics that go on just because it's like our last thing. In the last 2 weeks, we want to do that to minimize any chance of people working around it and just have the building on the actual permanent HVAC when we do those installations. And then lastly, just a shot of one of this is a pre-K bathroom, but we're actually setting fixtures in the bathroom. So this gives you a good example. Minus, we don't have the grab bars and some of the toilet accessories, obviously, but you can see we're switched out for the coffer aid. Tile is done. Fixtures are going in. So you can see where we are and that we're into the actual wrap-up finishes up through A and B and kind of cruising into the lower B. Right, and doors are here. Majority of the doors too. So we're swinging the wood doors at this point. And that was my last slide. So open it up and see if there's any questions or comments.
It really looks great. Wow.
A lot of progress. If you come out each week, you can see the measurable progress now as we're pushing through to the lower areas and as parking lot areas finish up. So that's why it was, even though it wasn't the best day, it figured it was good to try to get you the current photos versus 2 weeks ago because it does look different.
Definitely getting some rain. This rain is making up for all the good weather you had in the in the wintertime, but you're all inside now, right?
Yeah.
Mostly.
It just wouldn't stop today. I thought it was supposed to stop in the morning, but it just kept drizzling. So, but we just keep pushing on.
Got any other questions before we turn it over to Adam? Okay, Adam, you're up.
All right. So in a typical fashion, as the construction's moving along nicely, a lot of what Di and my team have been working on are some of those next phase items to get them prepped so they're ready by the time the project is ready for them. So, namely, as Justin mentioned, some of those smaller direct purchase type FF&E items. Working with Art Sickle and his team on some of the smaller bits and bobs they might need for the kitchen, as well as some of the vestigial AV and IT things like one-off displays and things like that. So you'll be seeing some of those items come through in the next meeting or two for some of those smaller approvals. In addition, one of the big items that there's been a lot of coordination on the past couple of weeks has been getting the networks in the building live. We need that not only for, or most critically for the building management system and tying in the mechanical systems and those startups. You need some connection to the internet to have everything start working. So, and that means you need a data closet to get that all lit. So working with the town's IT vendor to get their first couple of switches installed and some of the patch cablings, coordinating with Gilbane about which data ports needed to go first. So you have the internet where you need it for the mechanical equipment, as well as some just processing items like having some Wi-Fi in the building. So when you're going through and you're doing your punch listing and all of those types of activities, you have some ability to hack into a Wi-Fi to be able to upload your documents and photos and things like that. So lots of these items that don't make it on any sort of big, massive schedule, but they can really cause a havoc if they're not in place in time. So temporary IT network is getting installed this week. And then, like I said, we're coordinating with not just some of the smaller FF&E purchases, but also having kickoff meetings with individual movers and, or not movers, the furniture folks and the playground vendor to make sure that they're all ready for when the end of June, early July timeframe hits. So, like I said, just lots of these small items. The list almost seems like it never ends, but you get through one bit at a time. So. A lot of the items that I just mentioned, we'll kind of be talking about here in a moment with procurement. So I'll pause there in case there are any questions.
Hearing none, moving on to item number 5. Adam,
Right.
you're up.
I'll share my screen. per usual, especially as we get towards the end of construction, there are a lot of these PCOs and kind of cleanup items to get through. So as we get through the next several meetings, there might be a fair number of these. So we'll just do it in chunks like we've been doing. The first three items I'll show on the screen here. There's no action item. These are for reference only because they were approved on an expedited basis by Peter and George outside of the committee. The first one on the screen here is change order to Omnidata. They're the town's IT consultant for some couple last mile type equipment items for the IT rooms, as well as some additional labor for installing some of that initial temp network items I just mentioned. So that approval was made for just under 4,000. Similarly, there was an ATP to Gobain. This was about the cubbies that we had talked about, so nothing new here. This is just the cleanup item for the ATP that was approved for the cubby height change, so that work is being implemented. And then the third one that's for reference, it was a $0 change, but wanted included here because there was a change in scope with all of this, and that was there was coordination a while back on the location and types of graphics for those custom wall graphics that Rob was just mentioning. So this is a cleanup ATP that kind of tracks all the pluses and minuses, and it was a net wash to get the scope of the custom graphics that the school and some of the other committee members weighed in on while changing out some of the materials to, when we removed a graphic image, you have to put tile in its place so the wall is protected. So this change reflects all those pluses and minuses. Moving on to ATPs that are up for potential review and approval tonight. Starting, I'll go through all of them and then we can pause and do motions at the end per usual. Starting with ATP 83, this is for just over $6,300 for fiber cement panel blackout membranes. Essentially, the cement panels that you just saw Rob referencing, the way that they were detailed, as they were installed, we realized that the air vapor barrier beneath it would be exposed. You could see it, but also there was questions about, what happens if there's hail or could they be damaged. So working with the design team, provide an additional membrane between the air vapor barrier and the cement panels to provide that extra protection and to eliminate, blue shining in through the cement panels when you looked at them. So that's ATP 83. ATP 84 is for just over $8,100. This is the item that Sharon had mentioned at the beginning of the meeting for the rain change conflicts. Essentially, there was locations where the drainage structures came down, and where there's supposed to be a drain, it conflicted with the footings for the canopy. So a different product needed to be put in place there. So that way it would actually work and be configured appropriately. So you could have connection between your roof canopies and your underground stormwater system. ATP 87. This is for just over $1,800. There's a number of classrooms at one level of the building that didn't have column wraps. I'll kind of show quickly on the screen what we're talking about. But just the way that the drawings were shown, the locations where we had the box out in one room, but not the other. On the floor above, the box out was shown. So basically you would see the steel in the classroom if it was built per the drawings. So this change reflects the additional little bits of drywall returns to cover those at the number of classrooms. So that way it's properly hidden. ATP 88 for just over $900. There was an issue with the door hardware schedule where there was one product called out for overhead stop for the door, but it needed to be a different product just based on geometry. So that swap cost an additional $900 to make the correct change to the correct product for the stops so the doors physically could close appropriately. ATP 90 for 2150. This one's for some precast concrete treads. Justin, do you want to just quickly explain this one?
Yeah, this is for the communicating stair that connects the cafeteria to the upper level Main Street. The way the proper way to provide these precast treads is to have your upper tread be part of the miscellaneous metals and associated precast tread flush with the slab on deck. The drawings had the slab on deck going as the top step. What we really want to do is make sure that the tread that's at the same level as the floor at two locations has the same profile. That also allows us to get the high visibility indicator in the tread rather than having to not very eloquently treating that in the slab on deck. So this was a change in scope that associated with this change. We think it's for the betterment of the project and the finished condition.
Because the original slab on deck came all the way out, correct?
Yep.
Justin just pulled it back
Yes.
and provided a tread.
Yep.
Let me pause there because the remaining two ATPs are have a little bit more narrative to them. So let me pause there to see if there are any questions or items on ATPs 83, 84, 87, 88, and 90. No?
I think
Okay.
good.
ATP 92. This one is actually not a change order. It's an ATP, but it's intended to use construction manager's contingency. And because it's over $5,000, that requires SBC approval. The amount is $48,853. Again, this would not be coming out of owner's contingency like the other ATPs would. This is to provide sod instead of the current scope, which is seed, grass seed, at a number of locations throughout the site. So kind of see this multicolored scheme here. This reflects all the areas that were discussed in the trailer. This ATP would be for the green and yellow areas only. The intention here is to provide sod at these locations instead of seed, so that way when school opens, those areas have grass that's usable rather than waiting for trying to get seed to be established. Earlier in construction, there was the intent to try to seed these last fall to help avoid a situation where there wouldn't be grass on day one. But there was, if you recall from a while back, there was some issues with getting the permanent water to the site. Based on some of the detailing with Connecticut Water, the utility provider. So establishing seeding, starting to put the seed and establish it last fall wasn't possible. So instead, the notion was to put seed here or put sod here, and this way there's an area here just east of the playgrounds that can serve as the play field. There'd be some snow fencing to help block off some seeded area. And then all the areas around the building in the green here where there's going to be high traffic, especially as people are moving in and out, kids are cutting across the lawn to get to the door. There's some actual lawn there as opposed to seed that's trying to get established but having a tough time because they're getting trampled. The red and the blue areas, like I said, were considered, but there was also a weighing and measuring of what's the added cost worth. Ultimately, all CM contingency that's unused comes back to the owner. So this isn't just a matter of somebody else is paying for it. Let's just do all the sod. It's all the town's money and scope. So this appeared to be the best, reflect the best value on providing the scope around the building. And like I said, we're providing a play area without just adding in a bunch of extra cost. So that's what this ATP is for, to authorize Gilbane to use their CM contingency for this change. And then the other ATP that's up for vote is for just under 17,000 for tree removal at Mount Munger Town Road. In effect, there are, if you've driven past the site, there are a host of trees that were originally intended to remain along Mungertown. We recently had, through facilities, an arborist and the tree warden come back out to take a look at them based on site activities, utility installation, the sidewalk installation along Mungertown. And those were flagged as basically they're damaged and they were targeted for removal. So that's been cleared through the town processes. And so the notion is that as part of this ATP, those trees would be removed to remove any concerns about dead trees or safety concerns, what have you. This is coupled with another item that's that I'll mention here now, which is that's we'll call it the rock wall, but it's kind of a rubble wall along Mungertown Road that's got a lot of weeds and whatnot. So as the sidewalk's being installed, we've done a number of walks out to the site. Like I said, here's the wall, so to speak. And we're working with planning and zoning to confirm if there's any exception on the town land use perspective to remove these rocks and allow this to be just a established soil and seed area. So that way on day one, anyone approaching the school, you don't see a bunch of potentially dead trees and this kind of rubble wall and a bunch of weeds. It's nice and clean on the new school and the new frontage sidewalk. So again, this ATP that's up for approval tonight is for the 17,000 to just remove the trees. I would ask for the committee's consideration to allow Peter and George to potentially approve an ATP outside of the committee for cleaning up the rock and removing it and regrading the area there as part of a separate effort. The current rough estimate for that is a little over 30,000. I think it's around 32,000 is the estimate that they're working with. But that would be contingent upon planning and zoning confirming that that's an acceptable cleanup effort to take based on the land use approvals that the project has so far. So let me pause there because I've kind of said a lot. Just been talking for a while. See if there's any other questions, and then I can start putting draft motions up there before we get to the final procurement items.
Is there an actual tree count of how many trees they're taking out?
I don't have an
What's
exact
listed in
number.
anything?
It's a fair number. It's
Yeah.
all these shown here on the plans with these crosshairs here.
Okay.
Kind of depends what you define as a tree. Some of them are smaller
Like
than
gang
others. some of them
together
are
and-
dead,
yeah.
I don't know
some
if
of
that's a
them
tree
are
or
kinda,
not.
You know, yeah, exactly. Is that 3 trees or is that 7?
Got it.
But the arborist is blessed. The town arborist. And
Yes, that's all these green tags here. Those were made as part of that tree walk through the town.
Adam, do you want to highlight some of the trees that are being replaced on the berm?
Yeah, so basically once these are removed and this is cleaned up, you'll still have new trees that are installed as part of the project. And this is on this graded berm separating, the sidewalk and the road from the creek area. So this raises up, I forget how many feet. I think these are 1 foot contours, but it's several feet up in the air, and then you'll have trees on top of that, kind of providing that visual barrier and that physical separation between the road and the pre-K playground.
yeah, once obviously the construction fence is kind of blocking the view, but once it's gone, you have a nice view of landscaping and then the building.
I think that's a really smart move. A lot of those trees were damaged pretty heavily, and they were going to come down and die. And it gives a lot to those new trees to become established without competing with those other trees that were there. Are the stumps coming out with those, Adam, or what are they doing with stumps?
So this ATP, it would just be for cutting, just because when you start removing the stumps, then you're also touching the rocks that need to make sure are okay to move. So
Okay.
that 30 something thousand ROM would contemplate removing the stumps and the rocks in one go as part of the clearing exercise in that second.
I thought in the paperwork there was like a separate, like not 9,000 for the stump, so that's included in the 32 you mentioned?
If Nick, correct me, or Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, that would be in the second effort. This would just be for cutting and hauling off the trees themselves.
Okay.
Is that right, Rob? I don't recall off the top of my head.
No, that's correct. Yes. This would, the ATP that's currently presented is just for cutting the trees.
Yeah, but somewhere in the paperwork it said that right there was like 9,000 for stumps.
Yes, I think this would be
Removal or
in
whatever?
part
We
of the
probably-
30
yeah,
if
we-
approved.
So that's part of the 32 that you were talking about?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking it was like separate, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot.
Yes, I think this 13 here, the Gilbane obviously started getting a quote all at once, but that 13 there ties to this 13 here as part of this ATP. And then the other 8 and 1 would be part of that separate effort.
Thank you.
And Adam, explain the process for planning and zoning approval, because this would.
Yes. Oh, good point. So currently this topic is scheduled to be brought up at the ACA meeting tomorrow night to kind of get the overall consensus on the visual component of it. And then the town planning staff, planning and zoning staff would coordinate with the planning and zoning department on any other steps that would be needed thereafter. But the notion is once the scope is confirmed as acceptable to planning and zoning, they would notify myself and Gilbane, and then we could execute the ATP and conduct the work to remove the stones. But just want to make sure we're all above board on what's happening up front, just because it is part of the overall land use approval.
And if they don't approve it, we're off to plan B, I guess, at that point.
Right. We would, there's been just anecdotally, it seems like there's been support on when I've had site walks with multiple members of the project team, some town staff, etc. So I would anticipate that the support would continue. But again, like you said, if there was some big pushback or opposition, we would need to regroup on what the scope would be. The trees themselves, like I said, are already been reviewed by the arborist and the tree warden as part of a not just aesthetics, but an overall health of the trees and safety and nuisance concerns. So that's separate from the planning and zoning land use component of it, which the rock wall is more germane to.
Yeah, but we should have never called it a rock wall in hindsight. The
I
survey,
mean,
everyone
yeah,
felt, yeah, the concept of the wall was never.
yeah, I don't know that I would have called this a wall, but the surveyor did. So that's why I got the wall moniker initially. I'm sure it was a great wall 300 years ago. Not so much today.
I'm not sure if it was so great. Even maybe.
I'm sure it was a wall 300 years ago. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure it would have stopped a Revolutionary Wall bullet or anything like that, but and I don't think the neighbors were particularly. Their concern was the side. My recollection was the neighbors were only about the sidewalk. I don't think they knew there was a wall there, but because they lived there, they knew there was no such thing as a wall.
In spring, you can't. In summer, you can't see any of this because the weeds and poison ivy just take it over. Even though taking a site walk, you have to be careful where you step because there's a fair amount of poison ivy in there. But the concern from the neighbors when we had our outreach meeting with them was about having this frontage sidewalk for safety reasons and pedestrians and bicyclists and the cross country team from Daniel Hand and all that. So that's where their focus was in terms of making sure that this was there for safety reasons. But there was no, like you said, there was no discussion about the wall that I recall.
And the material, just so everyone's clear, it's a concrete curb and asphalt walk. Is that still I know there's been discussions about changing that, but that's still what we're doing.
I know it's an asphalt walk. I think it's asphalt curb too. Rob, do you know of him?
No, so it is a concrete
Is it concrete
curb
curb?
along the road, asphalt walk.
Okay.
And then any future extensions of that sidewalk are to be determined, obviously. I think the town hired a consultant to do investigation of how they could possibly connect this frontage to some other, the other schools or somewhere else, but that's outside of our scope. And the state's not paying for this anyway, right? They're not paying for offsite sidewalks anyway.
Correct, outside the property line, so it is ineligible. And where the scope we're following as of right now is exactly as was approved with the planning and zoning process as that alternate. So we're checking the box on what's been approved so far to meet the requirements for the job.
Beautiful. So you want maybe discuss, we didn't talk about the turf establishment component, which is really, it's not our money, quote unquote, but just want to make sure no one has any questions. Will make for a very attractive ribbon cutting, I'm sure.
And functional with
Yeah,
with the kids
yeah,
having some place to
exactly.
play.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And then I guess the gray area, the pollinator garden's still gonna be done after the fact, and that'd be that area, the pollinator pathway, I should say, would be, I guess, in the gray area, which is envisioned to be wildflower, right? That strip.
Right, and we're working, I know Graham, you and I have been talking and Gilmaine also about what that scope looks like. So there is some wet meadow seed mix here along the sort of the border with the wetlands and some of the stormwater provisions that are required as part of our stormwater design and the sort of the quality of water going into the Neck River area. But yeah, something I would imagine something along this area here outside of the turf and in this zone with the seed mix, meadow seed mix.
And Bob Gupta is working on a plan as part of that and working with the land trust. So if anybody in the land trust is watching, we haven't forgotten. So do we want to, I don't know if you want to take the votes now. Is there any discussion on the turf? Bob, you want to weigh in? I mean, Bob London, not Bob.
Yeah, I guess my only question is it going to be irrigated? No? Okay.
Well, we'll put temporary sprinklers as we establish. So during the establishment, yes, there's no permanent permanent irrigation as part of the project scope, I should say. And then just what we targeted is the areas, if Adam zooms out a little bit, the borders in the gray that we didn't shade, that's all wetland seed mix.
Yep.
And then you can see the area by the cafeteria in the middle of the south parking lots, that central artery up to the building. And then that's a Nomo seed mix. So that's a little different than the typical seed mix around the building and in the playfields. And that's the same Nomo that's around the berm and by the main entrance, the Mungertown Road frontage. So that's why you see those areas kind of not highlighted. They're a different seed mix. It wouldn't make sense. There's no sod available for those. So there will be areas that get the Nomo seed mix.
Got it. So you have to knock that down every once or twice a year.
Yeah, correct.
I don't know that Peter's team would want to be mowing up on the side of a steep hill over here. So it's a good targeted location for the low mow.
It makes for entertainment.
The guy with the lawnmower on the string method is okay, so I guess we can move to the motions. Any discussion of the frontage before we go to the motions? Just want to make sure there's a lot there, so want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to comment. Hearing none, we'll move over to the motions.
Would you like me to read those for you, Graham?
I would be thrilled if you would, Sharon.
Guess that's my job. All right. Motion to approve ATP 83 for the change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $6,358 for fiber cement panel blackout membranes per RFI 327.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 84 for a change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $8,181 for revised rain drainage structures per RFI 291.
Have a second? Thank you, Woody. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 87 for a change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $1,808 for added column covers in classrooms per RFI 325.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 88 for a change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $942 for revised overhead door stops per RFI 328.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 90 for change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $2,150 for additional precast concrete treads at the cafeteria central stair per RFI 299.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 92 to authorize CM contingency use in the amount of $48,853 for targeted changes of grass seed to sod to assist in the establishment before the first day of school.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 93 for change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $16,981. The removal of existing damaged trees as recommended by the town tree warden along Munger Town Road.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Motion to
This one I haven't talked about yet.
Oh, okay. I'm just reading along. Sorry.
Nope, it's all good. Before I mention this last one, was there any exception taken by the committee to potentially having George and Peter review and approve an ATP for the 30-some thousand of rock removal in between meetings? It's just more than that $10,000 limit, so I wanted to mention it here in the public meeting.
So, and that includes the stumping as well.
That would be stumping and rocks and would be contingent upon obviously planning and zoning saying it's okay.
Okay, so it's basically cleaning up everything that's left after the trees are gone.
Correct.
We'll have a nice smooth sidewalk and then grass or lawn leading up to the berm with trees and then the building in the background, right? So
Okay.
beautiful.
Okay.
Any discussion of that? Everyone just on board? I don't know if we need to make a motion or acceptance or just an understanding. Probably understanding.
Yeah, I think understanding is fine. It seems
Okay.
pretty clear.
Yeah, because hopefully the zoning approves it and we can move quickly to complete so we can do this turf establishment at the same time.
Yes. That last motion that I had up on the screen is with regard to a recommendation to award for final cleaning. Way back when we had our initial guaranteed maximum price document with Gilbane, there were a host of allowances and CM contingency items and buckets of money that were categorized for different things. One of the items that was actually within their site services portion of the contract was the amount for final cleaning is a separate bid package. This was slated for anticipated for about $120,000. So it was put out to public bid to get solicit vendors to do the actual final cleaning of the project before it gets turned over to the owner, being the city or the town rather. That those bids came in. The lowest responsive bidder was Newington Construction for $88,768, so less than the anticipated amount there. So effectively, this is it's pretty similar actually to what we just did with the CM contingency authorization, where effectively just the school building committee authorizing Gilbane to award the contract to Newington within the site services portion of the GMP, and because the dollar value came in within the bucket of money, so to speak, there's no added money and no added cost, and so it's not even a change order. It's just confirming that Gilbane is. It's acceptable to enter into this contract between Gilbane and Newington. So that's why this motion is up for approval so that they can do so and get them on board to do the final cleaning services.
Beautiful. Any questions?
Nope.
Now I'll put it back.
Now you're ready for me. Okay, got it. Motion to approve the recommendation to award the bid package 99A to Newington Construction LLC for final cleaning services. The scope and the cost of this package was already included in Gilbane's executed GMP contract, and the bid price is lower than the value carried within the GMP. So this recommendation to award does not require any increase in Gilbane's existing construction contract.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I did have one question. I did have one question, Adam. Why is it 99A? We didn't want to go to 3 digits on the 100?
I think it's part of Gilbane's computer systems. They freak out if you have 3 digits on anything. So it's 99A.
But they can handle letters. They can go alphanumeric. It just can't handle 3 digits.
Exactly right.
That,
They skip past 3 and go directly to 7.
gotta make it more complicated to make it seem like we know what we're doing, right?
But it does have the ring of truth, though. 99A. That's couldn't just be 100 as a round number. So, anything else on your before we move on to item number 6, Adam? You got any other?
Nope, nothing else for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to item number 6, public comment. Do we have any public to comment? I assume they're all over at the Academy project meeting, but
No comment.
got it. Number 7, remarks. Any remarks anyone would like to make before we close the meeting? Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'd love to.
Adjourn, go ahead. And second, Woody,
Sure, I'll second that, absolutely.
keep it simple. Okay,
Keep
thank
it
you, everyone. Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Bye, everyone.